प्रभु से तांको पोस्ट बनांतु
बने जिबा से देखो ना देखिछि
आपण फोन टा स्विच ऑन करी रखंतु
ना फोन ऑन कर परबेनी मो साइड काम किछि करबे ना जोटा करथि बारंबार बहुत लोग फोन करियो मते लिंक से
चिकन शॉट है नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणी निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna. Can everybody hear me okay? Radhanath Maharaj, can you hear us okay?
Jaya Radha Madha, Jaya Radha Madha, Radha Madha, Jaya Radha Madha, Jaya Radha Madha, Jaya Radha Madha, Radha Madha, Jaya Radha Madha.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me okay, Maharaj?
Hare Krishna, I can hear you.
Somehow I can hardly hear you. Can you try again? My volume was a little low, maybe.
Hare Krishna.
I can hear you very good now, Maharaj. We just wanted to say a few words of introduction for you. This is such an exciting thing for all the devotees, Maharaj. We want to thank you so much. For those of you who don't know, Radhanath Maharaj is in America right now. It's maybe 8:30 in the morning, 8:40 in the morning for him. He just finished a very difficult meeting, I would imagine, an international GBC meeting. And Maharaj is so much in demand. For those of you who don't know Maharaj, I hope everybody here does. He's a very dear disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He was living in Vrindavan before he met Srila Prabhupada, before he came to the ISKCON. Before that, he was traveling throughout India. He was in the Himalayas. He'd traveled cross-country to come to India. And he's a very, very wonderful devotee. Somehow Maharaj has been very kind to me. I've seen how many different sadhus outside of our line also appreciate him and how he appreciates them. And I also had the good fortune on a few occasions to be with our Guru Maharaj, Gaur Govinda Maharaj, when Radhanath Maharaj loving exchange they had. And I saw Radhanath Maharaj gave our Guru Maharaj a very wonderful donation. And I'd like to ask everybody in this program tonight to also give a similar donation tonight to Radhanath Maharaj. The donation that he gave to Guru Maharaj was he listened very, very attentively. When Guru Maharaj went to New Vrindavan in 1993, I remember Radhanath Maharaj coming to all the classes and just very, very eagerly listening. That's the price we want to give for a sadhu. And Maharaj, I can't express how grateful we are that you took some of your valuable time to come here. I think, without a doubt, you must be the most in-demand speaker in all of ISKCON. We're very humbled and honored that you come tonight. I just want to introduce very briefly a couple of other devotees to you. And we'll hear a word or two from them, and then we'll come to you. One is Satwat, my godbrother, who's serving our Guru Maharaj in Bhubaneswar for a long time, and now he's the temple president there. Let me just pin him up here also. This is Satwatpati Prabhu. He's very happy that you're here, Maharaj, and I think he wants to say a few words. So, Satwatpati Prabhu, can you just say something?
Yeah. Radhanath Maharaj. And we are very, very lucky and happy that we have got your good association. Maybe you are not in Bhubaneswar, but now we are feeling today, now you are in Bhubaneswar. And that's why we are getting so much enthusiasm about preaching. And also we are giving many, many thanks to you by giving your good association so that we can reach the Krishna consciousness for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada and Mahaprabhu. And we are very happy that by getting your association now, and also we are very eager to listen from your mouth, Krishna Gatha. And also in last few months or few days, we have got the association Madhana Prabhu, and also have listened from him. And so we are giving thanks to Madhana Prabhu. He's giving opportunity to us, inviting many Maharaj and devotees, Srila Prabhupada disciple. That's why I'm giving also many thanks to Madhana Prabhu. We are giving many thanks on behalf of Sri Krishna Temple and our ISKCON youth from Bhubaneswar to Maharaj, because he is so merciful on us. Today we have got him. So we are praying on his lotus feet. We'll get more and more his association by this type of association and Harikatha online in Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Radhanath Maharaj, I wanted to introduce one other devotee. I just added his picture just now. You can see this beautiful, round, smiling face brahmachari with a little lighter color than Sabapati Prabhu. This is Tukaram Prabhu, and he's a donation from Bhakti Charu Maharaj. A very wonderful donation. Bhakti Charu Maharaj wanting to do some service to help the Bhubaneswar temple and our Guru Maharaj. He sent Tukaram Prabhu, and I don't want to embarrass him, but I can tell you honestly that after he's been doing his service for a few years there, the whole atmosphere of the temple has changed. And all the devotees have become very, very sweet and humble, and everybody's serving each other and offering respects, and makes me very, very happy. Tukaram Prabhu is in charge of the ISKCON Youth Forum in Bhubaneswar, and they've opened up 10 youth hostels where they allow young people to come, small price, and they get prasadam there, and they attend their school classes, and they also chant 4 rounds of japa every day, and they hear some classes. And I think they've got over 250 boys in the group, and there's a few hundred ladies. Sabapati Prabhu is also helping very much. I just wanted to ask Tukaram Prabhu just to say a word or two, and then Maharaj, you can please speak. Everybody just wants to greet you. That's our main thing. Thank you. Tukaram Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dhanvat Pranam. Maharaj, around 2 years back, one fine morning, I was hearing your lecture on Jagannath pastimes. So that day, we were having a desire that we should visit Jagannath Puri. And one devotee gave me a call, and he said that he wants to visit Jagannath Puri with me. So I thought it's a very nice combination. In the morning, I heard the lecture from your lotus mouth, and then visited Jagannath Puri, taking darshan of the Lord in the mood and consciousness that you have expressed. So then we went there, we took darshan of Jagannath, we took Mahaprasadam, and while we were returning back, I was having a desire that I have heard Katha from your lotus mouth. It would be very nice if I could get your darshan at Jagannath Puri. And I was just thinking like this, we were coming from Jagannath temple, and we were seeing that you were walking towards Jagannath temple with just 1 or 2 devotees on the main street. And I could not believe in with my eyes that you were there. I pinched myself whether I was dreaming or really seeing you. But it was you. Then you came close to us, and we offered you obeisances, and you, with a very smiling tone, said Hare Krishna. So we thought that our desires fulfilled. Similarly, today our desires are getting fulfilled by getting your association. And I am very grateful, and we all are very grateful actually, Maharaj, on behalf of our IFI Bhubaneswar team. So we pray at your lotus feet that whenever you visit Jagannath Puri, please shower your blessings here in Bhubaneswar as well. Thank you, Maharaj.
Let me just underline that, Maharaj. I know when you come to Puri for a yatra, maybe in a year or two, or who knows, with the pandemic, please stop in the Bhubaneswar temple. Just give one class or something. That's the humble request of all the devotees here. So we'd like to hear something from you now, Maharaj, if you would be so kind.
Gyantimidandasya Gyananjana Chalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Judha Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatham Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanda Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindabaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patithanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbishesha Shunyavadi Paschyatyate Shatharine. Hare Krishna. I am sincerely grateful, honored, and happy to be with each and every one of you today. Special gratitude to Madhavananda Prabhu for somehow or other dragging this useless soul into your loving service, and to Swatapati Prabhu and Tukaram Prabhu for your kind words and helping to organize this event. And my gratitude to each and every one of you for devoting a very special, precious time so that we could be together. As I'm remembering Bhubaneswar, my heart and my mind naturally fall in Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of Srila Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj. His Holiness Gaur Govinda Maharaj he was one of Srila Prabhupada's and forever is one of Srila Prabhupada's most intimate, confidential associates in the loving service of Sri Sri Radha Madhava. When Srila Prabhupada sent Gaur Govinda Maharaj to Bhubaneswar, there was nothing there as far as ISKCON. Gaur Govinda Maharaj gave his heart, gave his life, gave his soul. Such an exalted scholar, such an exalted sadhu in every way, in the service of his Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, and our Guru Parampara, accepted the simplest, humblest, most menial types of services. Living in little shops on the floor, going from shop to shop and house to house, preaching and begging for people to participate in Srila Prabhupada's mission. Sometimes riding in the back of bicycles with local people. And then when he moved onto the land in Bhubaneswar, at that time it was a jungle, and he just had a little straw hut. And it was his determination through his writings, through translating Srila Prabhupada's books into the Odisha language, through preaching, cultivating, and building a beautiful temple and ashram. In many ways, for a single elderly person who had no means, this project was enormous. Many other projects in India had international support, and they were in wealthy cities. But Gaur Govinda Maharaj it was just him and his love for Srila Prabhupada. And now by his devotion, one of the most beautiful temples in all of the world has manifested. And especially, through his translations of Srila Prabhupada's books and his own lectures and books, he has given the world the priceless gift of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. In Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur explains that Krishna gave an order to Mahadev, Shiva, to reside in Bhubaneswar. And it would be the gateway to Jagannath's abode in Puri. More than anyone in the history of our ISKCON movement, His Holiness Gaur Govinda Maharaj gave deep, profound, and intimate emphasis on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Jagannath Puri and in the culture of Lord Jagannath. Madhavananda Prabhu requested me to speak briefly on the subject of why His Holiness Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj called his temple a crying school. Madhavananda Prabhu, you know the answer to that much better than me. And I'm sure many of you also share that. But I'll speak something because you have placed upon my head this service. When Lord Chaitanya was living in Puri, he resided in the house of Kashi Mishra in a very solitary space called the Gambhira. For the last 18 years of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, he spent mainly in Puri. He hardly traveled out of Puri. During his Madhya Leela and Antya Leela, when he was 24 years old, he left Navadvip as a sannyasi and came to Puri on the request of Sachimata and the Vaishnavas. He traveled through South India for about 2 years and returned to Jagannath Puri. From Puri, he went to Bengal a couple times. He returned to Navadvip, Vidyanagar, Koladvip. He went to Vrindavan and visited so many holy places. When he returned, he remained there in Jagannath Puri. And there he, in the association of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami and Srila Ramananda Rai, with the assistance of Govinda, his personal assistant, he was constantly immersed in the mood of Krishna, tasting the sweetness of Sri Radha's love. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes these 3 internal reasons why Lord Chaitanya appeared in the world. Krishna wanted to understand the glories of Sri Radha's love. He wanted to understand what it was about himself that awakened such ecstatic love in the heart of Srimati Radharani, and the happiness she feels when she tastes the sweetness of Krishna's love. Vedaham samatithani varatamanani chaudrina babashani chabutani mam tu vedana kashtana. Krishna knows everything, past, present, future. He knows every living being. He's the Paramatma, Ishwara Parama Krishna. Ishwara Sarva Bhutanam Riddeshir Janashishtati. He's the original personality of Godhead, and he's living within the heart of every living being. What is it that Krishna does not know? Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. Krishna is the source of all spiritual worlds, all material worlds. Everything, everyone emanates from Krishna. As Brahman, the impersonal, all-pervading feature of the Supreme, the Lord is inside and outside of everyone, in everything, everywhere. And as the Paramatma, he's seated in the heart wherever there's life in this material existence. So Krishna knows everything. He's Rasa Vihari, Rasa Raj, in the supreme abode of Vrindavan, which is the fullest manifestation of Bhagavan's opulence. The absolute truth beyond the all-pervading Brahman is living in his personal feature as Narayan in Vaikuntha. And of the many limitless Vaikuntha planets, the Lord is manifesting in so many of his eternal forms and personalities, including Lord Ramchandra, Narasimha, Varaha. But the source, Govindam Aripurusham Tamaham Bhajami, the source of all transcendental abodes of the Lord, where the Lord manifests his fullest, sweetest love, is Vrindavan. And it is in Vrindavan that Krishna expands himself, manifests himself in every possible way. Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanati. He expands himself as every living entity in all spiritual and material worlds. Through his various shaktis, he is supervising material existence, and he's also, as Yogamaya, supervising all of the limitless pastimes of the spiritual world. But still, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami brings us into the innermost heart of Krishna's thinking. Such a scripture is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that there is no other scripture in the entire existence that addresses such a subject, the most intimate thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual world, where he's feeling that Sri Radharani, in her love for me, is experiencing so much happiness. And her happiness manifests in every aspect of her being. Her beauty is ever increasing. Her love is ever increasing. Her happiness is ever increasing. And Krishna is in a prayerful mood. I cannot understand that. I want to taste the sweetness of Radharani's love as Radharani is tasting it. So in this way, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikratir Ladini Shaktirasmat. The absolute truth is one, but they're eternally two in the form of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna for pastimes of love, which is the origin of all love and all happiness in all of existence. Ladini Shakti means the pleasure potency, where Krishna derives his fullest pleasure, and that potency, which is the very nature of the love within the heart of every living being. That is Sri Radha. Radha Bhavaduti Subalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the mood of Krishna, coming to taste the sweetness of Radha's love. But in his three external reasons for incarnating, one is to establish the Yuga Dharma, the congregational chanting of the holy names. Another is to fulfill his prophecy of Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya Sadhunam, to give love of God again and again in various incarnations in this world, and to reciprocate with the compassion of Advaita Acharya. So Krishna is tasting Sri Radharani's sweetness, and he's also distributing that sweetness to the most fallen, conditioned souls in this age of Kali. Rupa Goswami prayed, Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prem Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaura Tveshe Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the most merciful, munificent, compassionate of all incarnations, because he's giving even what Krishna didn't give. He's giving the chance to enter into Krishna's eternal sweet pastimes to everyone in this age of Kali. When Lord Chaitanya was dancing at the Ratha Yatra in Jagannath Puri, in the mood of Sri Radha, bringing Jagannath Krishna to the Gundicha, which was his meditation on bringing Shamsundar back to Vrindavan. Mahaprabhu was crying. He was chanting, he was dancing, he was weeping. And in his crying, sometimes hundreds of people all around him would be completely soaked by his tears. It is described like by Kaviraj Goswami, his crying was like syringes, pouring water from his eyes. Also described like the Ganga and Yamuna rivers flowing from his eyes in his ecstatic love for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, in very simple ways, told that Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself who comes in the form of a devotee, Sri Radharani, but he appears in such a way to teach us how to be devotees. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri especially taught us the art, the science, the practice of cultivating love in separation. Just last year, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, who is one of my dearest mentors, God brothers, friends, well-wishers, Srila Prabhupada and Radha Madhav, brought him back to the spiritual world. And we're feeling that separation. Srila Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj many years ago departed. And many years before that, Srila Prabhupada departed. But it's not even like yesterday, it's like today. We're feeling the acuteness of separation as they left us. And when we feel that separation, we are consumed in loving remembrance. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he taught us this verse, Trinadapi suniche nataror ibasihishnana amani namanadena kirtaniya sadahari. That to cultivate love for Krishna, to cultivate a taste for chanting Krishna's name and remembering him in love, we require to be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant and forgiving than a tree, happy to offer all respect to others and not feeling entitled to or demanding respect from anyone. In this mood of true humility, Krishna reveals his presence within our hearts. And as we feel his presence, we feel separation from him. And that separation intensifies our experience of Krishna's presence and the presence of our acharyas within our hearts. During the Rath Yatra, there was a place near the Ayutthaya where Prataparudra Maharaj, the king of Odisha, sang the beautiful prayers of the gopis' separation to Krishna while he was massaging Lord Chaitanya's feet. These are prayers of such deep separation of the gopis. When Krishna was dancing with gopis in Vrindavan, and then he disappeared. At that time, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced the king and bathed him with his tears. King Prataparudra bathed Mahaprabhu with his tears. Such an abhishek they were both offering to each other of their love in the form of tears. It is explained many times by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that when Mahaprabhu was living in Puri at the Gambhira, he was in the mood of Sri Radharani when Uddhava returned to Vrindavan. Krishna had left for Mathura. Kaviraj Goswami describes the Brijabasis. After Krishna left, they cried for the rest of their lives. He sent his dearmost friend Uddhava from Mathura to Vrindavan for one reason, to further intensify the loving feelings of the gopis and gopas, and also to teach Uddhava what the deepest realization of prema bhakti truly is, which can only be experienced in its fullness by the residents of Vrindavan. There's a place close to Nandagaon, between Barsana and Nandagaon, which is, we call Uddhava Kyari. And that is a place where Uddhava, after meeting with Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai and the Gopas and the Gopis, he met with Sri Radharani and her associates in a very confidential place. And what did Uddhava see? Srimati Radharani, in her love for Krishna, she was crying so much that her tears within moments would flood the area, literally flood the area. And then she'd fall down, she'd faint into that flood of tears. And because of the heat of her body in separation, immediately all the water from her tears evaporated. This may sound like a poetic description, but this is the transcendental reality of the love of Vrindavan. And in this world, we experience sometimes tears of joy, sometimes tears of sorrow, sometimes tears of regret. But in Krishna consciousness, in the liberated state of always remembering Krishna, then all of these various sentiments are only gifts to increase our happiness. In spiritual life, sadness increases ecstasy. Separation increases union. The dynamics of apparent opposites are all serving the singular purpose of giving pleasure to Krishna by increasing the ecstasy, the happiness, and the love of his devotees. The idea of Ratha Yatra in Puri that Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya taught is the mood of when Sri Radha and Gopis went to Kurukshetra to meet with Krishna after a long time. There was so much anticipation. We will see Gopinath once again. But when he was in Kurukshetra, He wasn't wearing a peacock feather. He was wearing crowns. He wasn't wearing a flower of Kadamba, the Kadamba flowers. He was garland. He was wearing royal dress and ornaments. He was not surrounded by cows and gopas, and peacocks and gopas, but he was surrounded by elephants and warriors. There wasn't the chirping of the birds and the sweet flowing of Yamuna. There was the rattling of chariots. They wanted to bring him back to Vrindavan because they knew that that's where Krishna's happiest. And they cried. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the mood of Sri Radha is speaking to Jagannath, weeping and crying, please come back to Vrindavan. So in the Gambhira, this was very much the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, when they lived in Puri, they personally witnessed the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when they were sent to Vrindavan in their own mood, He Radhe Brajate Vake Chalalite Hinanda Suno Kota, they were in the mood of yearning, longing for Krishna in separation. A school of crying is a school that's capturing the very essence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's purpose for coming to this world. The very essence of what Srila Rupa Goswami on behalf of Lord Chaitanya taught us that we can achieve. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira, he would hear Swarup Damodar Goswami singing kirtans. He would hear Ramananda Rai giving katha, Hari Katha. And in this way, it was intensifying his crying and separation from Krishna. And every day he would go to the Tota Gopinath temple to visit Gadadhar Pandit. Each day they would study Srimad Bhagavatam together for several hours. And when Srinivasacharya came to learn the Bhagavatam from Gadadhar Pandit, Gadadhar Pandit revealed to him that the script on each palm leaf page of the Bhagavatam was washed away by the confluence of tears from both Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Gadadhar Pandit's eyes as they would read the Bhagavatam and discuss it together. We cannot imitate this. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada and our Prabhupada very much warned us against artificially, cheaply trying to imitate such a state. It is a sahajya tendency that's actually within everyone. We must guard against that. But when we hear about the tears of Mahaprabhu and the Goswamis and all of their associates and their loving remembrance while hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, it is something that we hold on the altar of our highest aspirations. By learning to be truly humble and devoted as a servant of a servant of a servant. And by learning to really take shelter of Krishna's names, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's deity form, Krishna's beautiful pastimes and teachings, through the 9 processes of devotional service, we purify our heart. And gradually, as we become purified, these feelings of love and separation awaken within us. If we try to imitate it, we build a wall between the true experience and our hearts. But if we feel ourselves truly unqualified, and we cry tears of humility, feeling ourselves so unqualified, then Krishna is pleased to reveal himself to us. And as Krishna reveals himself to us, he reveals the inherent love of our souls, of our jivas. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Gambhira, Vasudev Datta, he prayed to Lord Chaitanya, let all the sins of every living being in the entire universe fall on my head. Let me suffer perpetually, accepting their karma, and give them all your liberation. Such karuna, such compassion. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the compassionate words and felt the compassion in the heart of Vasudev Datta, he cried. His voice was choked, he could hardly speak. Parama karuna pahundui jananitai Gaura Chandra. The tears of compassion were so much a part of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. He was crying to Haridas Thakur, expressing how will all living entities in this universe, even the unmoving living entities, find love of Krishna. They are all bereft. Nityananda Prabhu, he was crying in compassion, begging Lord Chaitanya to give prema bhakti to Jagai and Madhai. We read about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis and all of their associates, how they cried tears of compassion to see the sorrow of the people of this world. Mahaprabhu was giving pure love for Krishna to elephants and tigers and snakes in the Jharkhand forest because he felt so deeply for their condition. When he was traveling in South India, the tears of his compassion washed away all the sins of countless people as he induced them to chant the holy names. And with tears of gratitude in his eyes, he would embrace those who chanted and who took his mercy. So the crying of feeling, paradukkha dukhi, feeling for the sufferings of others in their forgetfulness of their natural constitutional position as servants of Krishna. When Rupa and Sanatan Goswami first met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Ramakeli, which is near the border of what is now Bihar and Bengal, they were crying in humility because they felt so completely undeserving to even ask for Lord Chaitanya's mercy, what to speak of receiving it. They felt so totally undeserving, they were crying. So all of these sentiments of tears of gratitude, humility, tears of compassion for fallen souls. What to speak of compassion for the difficulties that other devotees are going through. Sometimes when Srila Prabhupada would see his devotees suffering, either by attacks of Maya or other reasons, he would cry in compassion for us. In fact, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of the reasons that he gave greatest prominence for his descending to this world were the tears of Sri Advaitacharya. Sri Advaita Prabhu, sometimes in Navadvip, sometimes in Shantipur, on the banks of Ganga, he was worshiping the Lord, praying, begging, and especially crying torrents of tears, feeling the sufferings of the people in this world, in this age of Kali. He was not just seeing the people around him at that time. He was looking into the future of Kali Yuga. He was seeing each and every one of us. And he was crying for us. And with those tears, he was begging Krishna to come. A mother cries when she sees her children suffering, especially in a helpless or hopeless state. And Krishna comes to taste the sweetness of Radha's love, but Sri Radharani is also the original mother of all living beings. When she appears in the heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the tears she's crying, the motherly love she's crying toward all her children in this world. I'm giving just a very brief, unplanned presentation of some thoughts that are running through my heart at this moment, of appreciation for His Holiness Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj. He opened up a crying school in Bhubaneswar. In the path of bhakti, in whatever we're doing, the idea of tears adds the depth of sincerity to whatever service we're rendering. Saragrahi Janardana. Krishna is always seeking the essence. And a devotee of Krishna is one who is always seeking the essence. And His Holiness Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj was, through his life, through his words, through his writings, through his projects, he was opening the doors for all of us to seek the essence. To develop a really deep taste for hearing the names, the glories, the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of God. Mahaprabhu, he taught us this principle of Gopi Bhartur Padakamalayora Dasa Dasa Dasanudas. To be servant of the servant of the servant. With a humble, forgiving, grateful state of mind. Trinada Bisunijina. And then Nayanam Galada Shrudaraya. He's praying, let tears flood from my eyes and let my limbs tremble in ecstasy as I'm chanting your holy names, my Lord. Sunyayatam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahename. Let me feel that a moment's separation from you, Krishna, seems to be longer time duration than an entire yuga. We cannot imitate these ideas, but they are all built on the principle of being the servant of the servant of the servant. If someone wants to be a lawyer or a doctor or a professor, they have to get high degrees, but they have to begin realistically by learning the basics. And that is the difference between a true Vaishnava and a Sahajya, is we want what Srila Prabhupada would say, first deserve, then desire. The basis in which everything is built is in our service attitude and our attentiveness in our sadhana. Let us examine His Holiness Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj. He opened up the crying school, but he taught us by his own example how to be the most menial, humble, sincerely dedicated servant of the servant. He placed himself for years in a situation where he was not getting any credit. He was not getting any glorification. He was just risking his life to serve. And he would risk his life to serve even people who appeared quite insignificant and undeserving, because that is how he valued the service to his Guru Maharaj and how deeply compassionate he was to all beings. And he traveled around the world. To us, he traveled around the world as a great acharya, giving pure bhakti. But in his own heart, he traveled around the world as a bhikkhu, as a beggar, begging on behalf of his Guru Maharaj for everyone to accept the holy names of Krishna and the path of prema bhakti. Haridas Thakur is Lord Brahma, but he would beg door to door, crying with compassion, begging people to accept the holy names of God. So this crying in the mood of the servant of the servant of the servant as a beggar, this sincerity of attentiveness and austerity of performing our sadhana and our seva is the means by which we can please our gurus and Krishna. And as we please our gurus and Krishna, Krishna gives us. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the mood of Sri Radha's love, gives us the genuine experience of Vrindavan by their kripa, by their mercy. Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered them to give us understandings of the most intimate details of the ecstatic love of the gopis in Vrindavan. But what was their example? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told in Jagannath Puri at the Gambhira to his devotees, I reveal the innermost secrets of my heart to Rupa and Sanatan because of their humility. They never considered themselves deserving. So we build all genuine experiences of realization on the path of bhakti, on the foundation of valuing greater than anything to be the humble servant of the servant of the servant of our gurus and Krishna. And gratefully receiving the orders of our spiritual masters to chant the holy names with all sincerity, without offenses. Mahaprabhu taught Rupa Goswami that when we offend other Vaishnavas, it's like letting an elephant into a tender growing garden. We should be very careful. We show our gratitude to our gurus by the sincerity in which we try to follow them. His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, before he left India, devotees were warning him that it's not safe to go, and he proclaimed from the core of his heart, Srila Prabhupada gave me pure devotion. He gave me this path of bhakti, and my gratitude to Prabhupada is to be in the battlefield, to share it with others. Yes, the great acharyas teach us that when we're preaching, we're not lords and masters, we're beggars. When we're preaching, we're servants of the servants of the servants. We're humbly expressing our gratitude to our gurus by sharing their message, by sharing their divine grace with others. All of these great personalities, their character is the encapsulation of the essence of all the scriptures. And Mahajano Yena Gatasa Panta, we want to, with all sincerity, follow in their footsteps. And these are some ideas of what this crying school is and how we can actually enroll and remain within this school that is teaching us how to cry in love for Krishna, how to cry in compassion for others. And even if we don't feel anything, we're crying in our longing and yearning and hoping to one day genuinely experience Krishna's grace in this way. Many of you today are in the youth forum, the ISKCON Youth Forum of Bhubaneswar. And it is the time of your life when you could really establish your purpose. Sometimes it is said that youth is wasted on the young because we only have a small window of being youths in this world. When you start getting older, you realize it all passed in a flash. I'm now 70 years old, and I'm just, thinking back when I was a teenager in my 20s and 30s, and now I'm even thinking 40s and 50s. We're so young. But there's, the brain is very fertile to absorb. The body has so much energy to accomplish things, and the spirit of openness to explore newer ideas is there when you're young, especially, and we want to appreciate the opportunity we have. It's very interesting. Srila Prabhupada first met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and dedicated his life to his mission when he was in his 20s. He was about your age. And, you know, throughout his entire life, he was serving that mission. Sometimes as a grihasta, sometimes as a vanaprastha, sometimes as a sannyasi. He was absorbed always in serving the mission of his Guru Maharaj. The more we value the gift of Krishna consciousness, the more excited we will be to share it with others. That is why, in order to really be an empowered preacher, we need satsang. We need the association of advanced and like-minded devotees. We need to study the books. We need to hear from the great souls when they're speaking Krishna Katha. We need to absorb ourselves in Krishna's holy names, because the more we taste Krishna through hearing and chanting, the more we understand the value of what we've been given. The more we understand the value of what we're given, the humbler we become, because we feel so unqualified for the greatness of this. When we become arrogant or proud, that means we're not really appreciating the greatness of what we're receiving. If we really understand and appreciate the greatness of we're receiving, we'll melt with tears of humility that it's being given to me, and it's being given me to share with others. It's quite inconceivable. So hearing and chanting and sadhana is very important, because we get deeper and deeper appreciation of the value of the causeless mercy and the gift we've received from Srila Prabhupada and our gurus like Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj and Jaipatak Swami Maharaj and Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj, you know, the gifts that they've given us. And when we see people, whether they're simple villagers or whether they're millionaires or billionaires with corporate headquarters in cities, we feel compassion for them, because the real wealth of life is in the happiness of loving Krishna. That's the only lasting wealth, and it's the only wealth that has any currency or value to the heart or the soul. So let us perform our seva and perform our sadhana in such a way, yasya prasadad bhagavat prasad, that we're truly pleasing our gurus. There's nothing more to achieve in life. Anything disconnected from that principle has no true value. Unless we're striving and crying for this higher taste of Krishna consciousness, then we'll inevitably be distracted by all the futile alternatives that Maya will constantly provide us. And for that, we need each other. One of the greatest lessons we read from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, and those of all of his associates and generations down, like the Goswamis of Vrindavan, Srinivasacharya, Narottam Das Thakur, Shamananda Goswami, all of these great souls, their relationships with each other was centered in what pleases Krishna. when Srila Prabhupada established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, he used this word society. And I know for myself, I left society. I really didn't want anything to do with society. I went to the Himalayas and I was living in caves and jungles because I really just thought society was just full of so much false ego and so much distraction and so much uselessness and hunger for money and fame and power and prestige. And I was living in Himalayas, and even when I was living in Vrindavan, I was just on the bank of a river, living mostly in seclusion. And then I found in Srila Prabhupada a most genuine presentation of the purest culture of Parampara in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis. And I found in him such a compassion that encapsulates Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya's mood. And I wanted to serve Prabhupada. But then I heard he started a society, and I was antisocial. But if this is what my guru wants, I'm going to be a member of this society. What it means to be servant of the servant doesn't mean just we dovetail our own nature, but we do it in a way that pleases our gurus. And I witnessed this especially. I learned so much about the essence of Srila Prabhupada's heart from His Holiness Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj, because, he was born and raised as a devotee of Jagannath, going to Puri in Odisha from a family of traditional kirtaniyas, and most of the society at that time were people who were coming from the West, who had very different types of habits they brought with them to Krishna consciousness. And many times there were misunderstandings, but still His Holiness Srila Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj, even in the face of the burning fire of sad misunderstandings, he always held the mission of his Guru Maharaj as the sacred principle of his life. And he traveled throughout the world to give spiritual strength, to give inspiration, to infuse mercy within Srila Prabhupada's society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And the whole idea of building a temple is to create a spiritual society. Otherwise, his sadhana was perfect when he was living under a tree in a jungle. But begging for money to build a temple was to create a society wherein we can establish and sustain, the mood of Srila Prabhupada's and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's culture and teachings. And in my own life, I have found this is one of the greatest challenges of being a devotee, is how to adjust to a society of other devotees. And the only way to really do it effectively is to really be in the mood of servant of a servant of a servant, and really to care about each other, And for those who we can connect with among devotees, we need to really develop a real spirit of being brothers and sisters. Madbhakta puja vyadika. Krishna tells that one who worships my devotee is greater than one who worships. It gives more pleasure to me than one who worships me. And we worship Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj. We worship Srila Jaipatak Swami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj. We worship Srila Prabhupada. But worship means to give them pleasure. And the greatest way to worship them is to worship those who they love. And every devotee in our community is loved by them. So the genuine sincerity of our spiritual aspiration to serve our gurus is very much how we treat other devotees and how we encourage each other to taste the sweetness of kirtan together, to taste the kirtan of Krishna Katha together, to taste the kirtan, to taste the sweetness of serving the deities our gurus have given us together. And to serve the altar of the mission of our guru, to have a strong, happy place for devotees to live and to expand throughout the world. This is our gift. This is the gift that we want to open our hearts forever to receive and to share with each other. Madhavananda Prabhu, you are patiently tolerating saying. You gave a little list of what you would like me to speak about. Did I cover all the subjects of that list?
Maharaj, you just took us to the universe of crying, for everything from the mother crying for the child to so many appropriate things. Thank you so much. I very much appreciate it. I'm a little worried about you. It must be almost 10 o'clock in the morning your time, and I suspect you haven't taken prasadam.
You know, what you just said, the mother crying for the child, it's interesting because the relationship is mutual crying. When the baby cries for the mother, and seeing the baby crying, the mother cries for the baby. And in this world, that's where the exchange of love connects us.
Yesterday we were speaking about rain. And rain is an interesting thing. We say that samsara davanala lita loka tranaya karuna gana ganap, and the Gurudev's like a shower of rain. And in the Indian Vedic system, you collect that rainwater in a pond or something. And then after you collect that mercy or that rain, you distribute it. In the Vedic system, if you do that, it can change the climate. And that body of water will attract more rain to come. So I was thinking in the same way that when we cry for Guru, and then we come close to Guru and we see their mood and how they're crying. And they're crying for the living entities, for the suffering of others, like you were mentioning about Vasudev Dutt. And then we take on that crying ourselves, a mission. I thank you so much, Maharaj. You covered so many very deep things. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, the rain nourishes all of the flowers and the fruits and the crops. And similarly, the sincerity of our crying for mercy is what waters the seed of bhakti within our hearts.
I think the devotees had some questions, and Amritesh Gaur Prabhu was going to read them out. Amritesh Gorpa, let me introduce him for a moment. He works at the IYF. He's a very sincere, sweet brahmachari. Amritesh Gorpa, do you have some questions? You'd like to read them out?
Yeah.
First of all, Mars, do you have a little time?
I am honored to serve all of you.
Okay, let me just add a pin here then. This is Amritesh Gorpa.
Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I'm asking the questions on behalf of the students, which they have written in their chats. One question has come from Yasraj and Yuvraj. He asks, Maharaj, sometimes we try to cry for the mercy of Krishna, but we regret that we become so hard-hearted that we are unable to cry due to our anarthas. What can we do, Maharaj, in this situation?
It is always very important principle to be honest and to be real of how far we are from Krishna. In one time in Navadvip Dham, Sri Mayapur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was crying that he had no love for Krishna. He was crying and crying on the bank of Mother Ganga. He said to devotees, if I had one drop of love of Krishna in my heart, I would not be able to live without him. The fact that I'm still living means I have not even a single drop of love for Krishna in my heart. And to recognize that we don't have it, but to want it, to feel separation from the separation, that is to give it real value. And in many ways, just feeling hard-hearted, but wanting to melt our hearts, that experience in and of itself is a type of crying for Krishna's mercy. And then we want and then we want to do what will help us to realize it. By associating with advanced devotees, by serving Guru's mission and Guru's desire, by doing very, very serious sadhana. You know, these are all ways in which we, if we're serious, longing to melt our hard hearts, then we will actually take the path by which we can melt our hearts.
It's very beautiful.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, thank you. Maharaj, another question is asked by Sachin Prajapati. He says, thank you, Maharaj, for addressing us. Currently, I am working like a machine, chanting and following regulative principles with no true love for Krishna. How can I develop that taste for devotional life and this true love and emotions for Krishna?
You see, a machine cannot ask that question. A machine can do things, but it can't question what it's doing with a heart. And so you are doing, just, try your best.
Maharaj, one question Utkarsh Yadav asks. Utkarsh Yadav is asking how to develop this true humility, which is the essential thing we require.
By reading about such great personalities who embody this humility, like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all of his associates, like the 6 Goswamis, like Narottam Das Thakur, and all these great souls. We read about their humility, and although they're so exalted, still they're more humble than blades of grass. What is my position? By reading about the great souls, we we emulate the ability to value humility, and we realize how insignificant we really are. And the more we realize on bhakti, when we realize we're insignificant, we don't become depressed, we become jubilant, because the more we realize that we're insignificant, the more we can appreciate the greatness of the acharyas, the greatness of our gurus, and the greatness of Shri Shri Radha Madhava. False ego blocks a true appreciation of Krishna's greatness and Vaishnava's greatness from us. So, you know, we read about, we hear about great souls who have that humility. We try to associate with devotees who embody that humility. And in our sadhana and in our, we pray for that humility. You know, in a materialistic religion, sometimes people pray for greatness, but as associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees, we are praying for humility, because in that humility, we can actually manifest in our lives Krishna's greatness. So we pray for humility. And the more we feel we don't have it, the more desperate our prayer should be to receive it. And also to, even if we don't feel it, to serve in the spirit of humility as an austerity is a way of showing Krishna that I really want it. So by hearing about the great souls, by associating with great souls, by praying for humility in our sadhana, and by serving with humility, whether we feel it or not, this is the sure process by which Krishna is pleased to give it to us. Because real humility is not anything we can attain. It's not an intellectual achievement. It's not something that's just by tapasya or by earning. Real humility in the spiritual sense of bhakti yoga is a gift. And we simply need to show our sincerity that we want this gift through our prayers and through the mood in which we serve. And especially the mood in which we interact with other Vaishnavas.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, one question one of our students is asking, the name is not written. He says, Maharaj, what is this Maya and how can we recognize her and safeguard ourselves from Maya?
What is the smile, you said?
Yes.
Can you be a little more precise in what that means?
His question is that how can we protect ourselves being students and practicing Krishna consciousness at the same time we are going to college and also studying outside. So how can we safeguard ourselves from this opposite sex attraction especially?
Wonderful question. We need to balance our lives appropriately. We need to balance building a house with maintaining a strong foundation for the house. So in the same way, our association, our spiritual practice, our bhajan, our sadhana, is very foundational. And in that spirit, we build everything that we do on that foundation. the foundation of the intent to serve with love. So if we're studying, if we understand that my whole life, I will be, whatever I learn now, I will be able to utilize for my whole life in the service of Krishna, in the service of my Guru, then how important our study is. If we're just trying to get through our studies and we really don't emulate anything, then we're kind of wasting our time. But if every moment of our studies, whether it's direct or indirect, if it's preparing us for a life of devotion and to give us tools and skills we could use in devotion, then our studies have great spiritual value. Our studies become very much a part of our sadhana because they're inseparable from our sadhana and inseparable from it. Our studies become our seva. If the intent of our study and the character in which we pursue our studies is to prepare ourselves for a life of devotion. You know, Arjuna, he studied at the ashram of Dronacharya, and he didn't only study scriptures there. He taught, he studied how to drive chariots and how to, shoot bows and arrows and how to fight with clubs. And, he was learning all these things, but it was not Maya, because everything he was learning, it was for his future life of serving Krishna. And he used it all for the service of Krishna. Not always immediately, but it was always there. So I see, within our brahmacharya ashram, we have doctors and we have lawyers and we have software engineers and we have farmers and we have preachers, and even some of our greatest preachers still, they use the skills that they used in college as ornaments for their preaching. And then we have those who enter into Grihastha ashram, whether they be mothers raising children, or whether they be, people in commerce or in engineering or in medicine or in farming. Whatever they learn, they're using their skills, and so much of the finances for our projects are coming from people who learned skills in their college. And there are wonderful devotees like Radhagiri Dari Prabhu who, they're expert what they learned in their youth, and they're starting companies, and through their companies, they're financing entire projects. Bhaktivedanta Hospital, they learned how to be good doctors, and well over 1,000 people have become initiated devotees just by going to that hospital as patients. So, they're just connecting whatever they learned for the purpose of loving service to Krishna. So whatever you may be studying in college now, whether you're in the future going to be a brahmachari or whether in the future you're going to be a householder, don't just see it as a waste of time. See it as whatever you learn, directly or indirectly, you will be able to use in the service of Krishna for the rest of your lives, and it will be very valuable. But to have that appreciation, to have that purpose, we need good association. We need satsang, and we need sadhana.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. Maharaj, one question Manohar Gopal asks. Manohar Gopal is asking, Maharaj, sometimes we try to follow instructions of devotees just to make them happy. But since it is not coming from our heart, it is very hard to continue in that service. Maharaj, how to follow the instructions even if we don't like what our authority says?
The nature of the mind is it's accepting, it's rejecting. Sometimes it's pleased, sometimes it's displeased. So as devotees, we try to rise above the chanchalam, ever flickering tendencies of what the mind accepts and rejects. And we try to live by the higher principle, samsiddhir haritoshanam, what will please Krishna. What we're searching, Krishna, yeyatamam prapadyante tamstataiva bhajamyaham. As we seek Krishna, as we surrender to Krishna, Krishna reveals himself. So if we're given a service that we don't like, it's a matter of adjusting our consciousness. Am I doing it because I like it? Which means my mind at this present moment likes it. Because even if we're given something we like, after some time, we may not like it anymore. That's the nature of the mind. Or are we doing it? Let us look for our pleasure in giving pleasure to Krishna. That's a higher principle. That's what it really means to be a servant. That's what it really means to perform seva. That we put the higher principle of what will please my Guru and Krishna as what will actually make me happy. Your mind might be suffering, but your soul might be dancing in ecstasy, but you're just disconnected from your soul. But by living in harmony with what the soul wants, which is selfless devotional service, that's where we actually make a connection with the soul and with Krishna. So certainly we can express ourselves, and we can express, what our aspirations and inspirations are to our leaders and to other devotees. But ultimately, we should look for our happiness and how we could best serve.
Thank you, Maharaj.
In my own spiritual life, some of the things that appeared to be the most contrary to what I liked years ago are now the things I relish the most. That's what it means to make spiritual advancement. I'm not saying I made much spiritual advancement, but by Prabhupada's mercy and the mercy of the Vaishnavas, I can appreciate that more.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Maharaj, we have already taken a lot of your time. I don't know if anything is lined up in your schedule. So there are a couple of more questions, whatever you say, Maharaj.
I think I'm just going to look at these. I'm sorry, I don't know how to use these computers so much. But I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity to be with all of you. Can all of you put on your screen so I could see who you are? Not only I can see who you are, but you could all see who each other are. You are so very...
Maharaj.
Yes?
Yes, sorry to obstruct you, Maharaj. Maharaj, this class is being operated on YouTube also because this Zoom has a limit of 100 participants. So all of our sincere youth forum students has joined through this Zoom, and others are watching through YouTube. In English YouTube channel, there are 550 devotees watching live. Hindi channel 50 devotees, Marathi channel 50 devotees, Bengali channel 10, Gujarati 10, and in Odia about 60 devotees are watching it online. Hare Krishna. So all of them are there.
Thank you very much. Bhubaneswar, Odisha is one of the holiest of all holy places in the universe. It's the place Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chose to live for 24 years. It's the place that the all-merciful Supreme Jagannath Baladev and Subhadra are forever residing. It's the place of so many of our greatest acharyas throughout history. And Mahadev Bhubaneswar, Lord Shiva, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we read about how he, with tears of compassion for all living beings, he drank that ocean of poison. And this was very much the mood of Advaita Prabhu when he was crying to bring Lord Chaitanya to the world. So Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj has, in such a pure, authentic way, given us Srila Prabhupada's heart. And all of you in Bhubaneswar have inherited the gift of his divine grace. I congratulate you. I thank you. And I'm truly honored and grateful for this opportunity in my own small way to try to serve you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you again, Maharaj, so much. We really, really appreciate your giving us some of your time, such valuable time, and so many devotees are so very, very delighted. Somebody mentioned that this was the first time that Radhanath Maharaj has ever spoken in Bhubaneswar. That's not true. Actually, it was 1997, I remember the last time anyway, I think that was the last time, on Gadadhar Pandit's appearance day, I think it was, just around this time, and you gave a class in Bhubaneswar, I remember, a very wonderful class. But that was the last time that I recall. It's been too long. So you have to come again. Thank you so very much. Let me just turn over to Tukaram Prabhu. And Tukaram, I just wonder, maybe you have some comments you want to just give to everybody here, because this is really your program. You need to unmute yourself, Tukaram. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, we are very grateful to you. We all have made very nice points. One point that I like the most, that you said that worship means to give pleasure. Kindly bless us that we all can actually worship Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gaur Govind Maharaj, actually give pleasure to them. And we are also looking forward for your association here in Bhubaneswar as soon as possible.
I am at this moment, I am yearning, longing, and I'm about to start crying in separation from Bhubaneswar. and all of the devotees, all of you.
Maharaj, one compliment one of your student disciple is saying, Avinash Acharya says, and all of us also agree, your smile is very heart-touching.
I don't
Maharaj,
know. But if I'm smiling, it's only because of the power of your goodness that makes me smile.
Maharaj, one more thing also like I can say, the more we value the gift of Krishna consciousness, the more excited we will be to share it with others. Thank you so much, Maharaj. We are very, very grateful to have our very, very dear spiritual master, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Guru Maharaj with us. And also along with him, we have His Grace Madhavanand Prabhu, and His Grace Satyapati Prabhu, and also His Grace Upendra Mishra Prabhu, and many other senior devotees. And I would like to express our heartfelt thanks on behalf of ISKCON Bhubaneswar to all the devotees attending it, and everybody for calmly listening to what Maharaj said. And we are sorry we could not take all the questions today. Maharaj will reveal them in your hearts. Hare Krishna.
Jai Jagannath.
Jai Jagannath.
His Holiness Radhanath Swami Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah.